What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the opinionated hippie, and this is part 3 of my ranking and reviewing Phish's. It's early. Phish's live Phish series. I'm going to start on the original CDs that they released way back in like the early 2000s. I'm going to go through there one show at a time and review them and then rank them as I go. So this one will be ranked among the other two. This, a 3 CD set, a complete show from September 14th, 2000, and it is fantastic. Darien Lake, New York. There was another, Darien, New York show from, 93, 94 that is ridiculously good. So they played really well at Darien Lake. And this is just perfect. I mean, I think it's a perfect first set. It's a perfect second set. There were 4 pretty epic jams on here, maybe 5 if you count the Reba solo. It's jam heavy. The set list is perfect. The performances are fantastic. You get a little bit of everything throughout the show. It's absolutely amazing. First set, all on disc 1. 7 songs or 7 tracks, 6 songs. Opens up with Punch You in the Eye. Nice space disco opening, kind of just establishing a groove. Really nice Punch You in the Eye. I think really one of the main, they're usually the same every time, right? You get that awesome spacey kind of set the tone space disco jam, and really where you kind of differentiate, I think, Punch You in the Eyes is how well Trey is hitting those landlady segues. You know, the first time we go into it, how well he hits that opening run, and you know how that jam goes. And I think he nails everything here. Really solid Punch You in the Eye. Everything works. Great energy to open up the show. That goes right into a Reba. Fantastic Reba. Gordon's bass work in particular seems to be particularly like in the forefront on this. Really nice, slowly building solo that doesn't really reach an epic peak, but just kind of it's there. It's your nice Reba. Trey's just having a good time. Sounds really good. It's almost as if it doesn't reach that peak because they're just kind of holding a little back for later. Like that drum part from Fishman maybe comes in before you think it's going to come in, only because they haven't like can they go any higher? It doesn't reach that point, but I think it's a really solid Reba. Then we get an Albuquerque, the Neil Young song. Always a little bit like jarring, only because I think Trey's guitar playing on this completely gets the vibe of Albuquerque. But then as soon as the vocals come in, I'm a little just like, they're not quite that sort of weary drunkenness that Neil Young has on that on the Tonight the Night's version of Albuquerque. Plus, there's something about Fishman's drumming on here where he's just not like, it's lazy's not the word, behind the beat's not the word, but there's something about the drumming on the original that's just so like, I'm here to support, but I'm not really here. It's just sort of like this almost laid back behind the, like struggling to keep up, like purposefully. And Fishman's like such a good drummer and like just a little too tight on the beat. You just need a little bit more of a like ramshackle quality. Other than that, fantastic Albuquerque. That goes into a monster Carini. I love this song. It's an unreleased song, really heavy sort of space metal type jam. The jam in this, they just get into that jam section and it's just like, it's almost just like they're in like this wind tunnel trying to like fight, like to get forward, and the entire band's just like, it's just like this space metal jam that is just like fantastic. It's just, I think when this was released, Trey said something that he picked this show. I think Trey was the one who picked the show, or said he argued for this show because this was the best Carini he thought they had played, at least up to 2001 when it was released. Just an absolutely fantastic, really spacey, really metallic, aggressive, but not in like a shredding on the guitar aggressive. Like there's some serious shredding, but it's in this very like weird space metal tunnel. Just, I don't know, Carini, just a fantastic jam. That goes into like the first Oki Pa ceremony in like a year. They hadn't played that in like a year. That jumps right into Susie Greenberg, as it should. Susie has 2 pretty interesting jams. There's a really neat middle jam in Susie's that's just kind of like, almost harkening back to like a 98, 99 kind of spacey jam. And then after Susie ends, there is a track called Darien Jam Number One, which goes on for 12 minutes, which is essentially a pretty simple, pretty straightforward 12-minute Susie jam. Like, we really don't get out of like a Susie groove for that entire 12 minutes. It's kind of laid back. It's just kind of everybody's having a good time and dancing, and it just goes on, and it doesn't really get out there to weird space things or get weird. Towards the end, it starts to get maybe a little bit funkier and a little bit, as it simmers longer, things get a little bit stranger and weirder. But it doesn't really break free from like the Susie confines, which makes it really interesting and really compelling and just like a nice. I mean, it essentially turns Susie into like a 20+ minute version of Susie Greenberg. My cassette that I have of this, I still have a cassette. Like, it doesn't have Susie in a jam. It's just Susie, because that's kind of what it sounds like. But yeah, absolutely fantastic first set. Strong opener. The Reba solo is fantastic. Awesome song choices in Albuquerque and Carini, and just an epic, epic Susie Greenberg. The first set is so good, you almost expect the second set can't deliver, but it delivers. We open up with The Drowned. They had done Quadrophenia 5 years earlier as one of their Halloween shows. So this had been in the rotation. It had started to rain buckets and buckets at this point in the show. So I don't know whether this was what they were going to play anyways, but they played it. It worked. The audience was drowned. The rain coming down. Really good Drowned. And then they go to something that is listed as Darien Jam Number 2. 25 minutes. On my tape, I just had Drowned into the following song. It wasn't indexed as a jam. But this is the one instance where I think indexing this as a jam kind of works, because what happens over the course of that 25 minutes doesn't really seem to bear any relation to that Drowned. It is just this 25-minute jam that's almost like an ambient music jam. Like, Trey is without a doubt the least sort of in the lead figure in this. There's no Trey shredding. I don't think at any point in the 25 minutes does he rip off anything other than maybe some licks every once in a while. He's doing some really good rhythm work. Every once in a while, maybe he's starting to solo, but it's not like leading the charge. He leads the charge a couple times, like with what he's playing rhythmically, but he's not leading it solo-wise. And it really is just like Paige and Mike and John, the keyboardist, the bass player, and the drummer, just kind of like jamming and like leading it in very ambient directions, and it just kind of floats there for a while, and it takes a long time to develop every idea, and they're like in no rush to go anywhere, and like it just goes on and on and on and on. And if I imagine that, like, being at the show, which unfortunately I wasn't, I did know it was raining, and to think that it was just pouring down rain, or like the audience is getting soaked and they're just up there just like, it's really like they're floating in the ocean for like 25 minutes. And like, they're not on rapids going fast. They're like floating in the ocean. And they're just kind of like, yeah, they're going someplace because the tides are inevitably going to push you in one direction or the other. But there's no like urgency to get anywhere. They're not going quickly. At times, maybe the tides slow down or they hit another tide. And so maybe they're kind of like not really going anywhere for a while before another tide takes you off in another direction. It is just the most, it is one of those jams where, like, I think the first time I listened to it, I was like, all right, didn't really go anywhere for 25 minutes. That was interesting. But then it's like, I'm compelled to go back and listen because it really is so many fine details and so many good moments where Fishman's doing something and you can hear the band follow, or Mike starts playing something and you hear the band follow, or Paige starts something and you can hear them follow. Just the way they listen to each other, the way they respond to each other, the fact that they do this for 25 minutes and it doesn't really go anywhere. I don't know. I think it's just one of the most fantastic jams they ever have. Doesn't really feel like it's connected to Drown, so it's interesting. I think that indexing it as a separate jam works. And towards the end, it just kind of feels like they just kind of almost like wash ashore on the beach. Like they get closer and closer to the shore, and they just kind of get washed ashore, and it just kind of like ends, and they're like, okay, we're here, we're done, let's get up. Let's brush the sand off us, maybe shakes the water out of our hair, and then let's jump right into Cross-Eyed and Painless. And they jump right into Cross-Eyed and Painless, which sounds fantastic. one of the few songs where Fishman's vocal style works perfectly. When the harmonies come in and the backing vocals come in, but Fishman's sound, John's sound on this, the way he sings works for this song, works for Talking Heads, works for David Byrne stuff. Then we get Darien Jam 3, which is essentially a cross-eyed and painless jam. Definitely much more connected to the song than the Drown Jam was to Drown. It's just a really high energy cross-eyed and painless jam that just goes on and on and on and keeps the funk going. It's really fun. That eventually slows down and goes into a really nice dog face boy, which is a nice way. And that's the entirety of disc 2. Drowned, the Darien Jam number 2, cross-eyed and painless, Darien Jam 3, and then a dog face boy. And then we get the rest of the show on disc 3. We get a Prince Caspian, which is not one of my favorite songs, but I would say that in the context of this show, it works really, really well. That slow build in the beginning, just after the mega jams that we have, and the little like sort of dog face boy kind of interlude, they're like, all right, we're calm here, we're focused, we know what's happening. That night, a kind of nice slow build back into Prince Caspian. Prince Caspian is a really nice ending jam on this, really well. I'm okay with it, and it doesn't close the set, which is also a point in its favor. It goes into Loving Cup, which might be my favorite song that Phish covers. Definitely one of my favorite Rolling Stones songs. This version is epic. The jam at the end just goes on and on and on and on. Like, the vibe of this show is let's just tack on really, really awesome jams at the end of songs. And they tack on just this awesome, awesome jam at the end. They eventually go back into Loving Cup and wrap it up. But that closing solo jam is much more epic than I would say your typical Loving Cup is. Just like going that extra mile. And Trey's just like pushing it. And you can't ask for a better song. And that's the end of set 2. Really interesting set. I mean, you got a cover song from The Who into a mega jam, cover song of the Talking Heads into a mega jam. You got 2 Phish songs, Dogface Boy and Prince Caspian, and then you close with the Rolling Stones cover with a pretty epic guitar solo jam at the end. Just absolutely fantastic. And then another highlight, that Albuquerque from the first set. A lot of covers in here, but live they work for me, especially if you're going to tack on some epic jams. Then for an encore, pretty interesting encore. We get 3 songs for an encore. We get Driver, not one of my favorite sort of slower Trey songs. I don't like the sort of extended metaphors that they sometimes use. I don't think there is maybe too clever and just not enough like insight, but whatever. It's nice to hear. Into a really nice In-Law Josie Wales, which works, and then closing out with a pretty straightforward sample in a jar. So maybe the encores. The Driver, In-Law Josie Wales, nice to hear. The sample in a jar might be a little bit like, okay, whatever. But, you know, it's good energy to close the show. But yeah, fantastic. Stupidly, stupidly fantastic show. Like, and I really think the Darien Jam number 2, that 25-minute jam that follows the Drowned, is like almost a must hear. And I would understand how not everybody, that maybe is not their thing. I think it definitely bears a little more relation to like, I don't even want to say dead jams, because Trey is so absent or so not present in a way that Jerry, I don't think, is ever not present in like an extensive dead jam. Jerry's always doing a little more like exploring ideas than I even think Trey does here. But it really is just this really neat, definitely kind of harkening back to like the 98, 99 era when they did these more longer ambient jams. But just to have it right, like, so early in the second set, to have it be 25 minutes long. But what makes it work is like the tension that isn't released and the sort of excitement that isn't built up, because it is such again, floating in the ocean jam. It's released in other places in this show. So it just like, it's providing something else that you don't have elsewhere. Yeah, I don't know. Fantastic show. Fantastic. Highly recommended. Of the 3 that I've done so far, if you're new to Phish and you want to check out Phish, check out Live Phish Volume 3. I think the first set is excellent. I think the second set is excellent. That's where I would rank it. It is my favorite of the 3 so far. I do like the lengthy jams. I would definitely put it as number 1. Interested to see as I go forward. Like, I know what's coming up, and I'm interested to see as I revisit them in real time, like, and listen to them, whether anything beats this, because really this is like why I like Phish. You know, if you give me a second set and like 31, 35 minutes of it if you include that Loving Cup solo, maybe close to 40 minutes with that Prince Caspian jam. You give me like half the set is just them jamming, like without vocals. That's Phish heaven for me. But yeah, fantastic show. Anyways, that's what I think. Let me know what you think about the show. Let me know if you check out the show, thoughts, all that kind of stuff. Subscribe, like, share, and go listen to music, people. Go listen to this entire show because it's fantastic. All right, that's all I got. Talk to you later. Peace.